ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करभावहे तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहे। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। This question has always there in the human mind since the inception of the civilization, and that gave rise to philosophy. If we look into the history of civilizations, we find two countries. One is India and another is Greek, where there is the development of philosophy. But there is a big difference between the philosophies that developed in Greece and that is developed in this land called Bharat. I am not going into all those details because that will consume the time. Only in short I will tell that when we read a philosophy, we have some answers. Like, who am I? Philosophy gives us answer. But is that an answer? That is the big question. Because I will say your consciousness, you are Atman, you are self, you are Jivatma. What does it mean? Just some words. And it does not mean anything. If it gives some information to your intellect. So our understanding remains at the level of intellect. And that is not knowledge. That is just information. The Western philosophies are what we call the Greek philosophy. Their level is up to the intellect. Whereas Indian philosophies don't stop at the level of intellect. Because intellect is a product of the source that you are. And since it is a product of the source that you are, you can name it Atman, you can name it consciousness, you can name it anything. Or according to Buddhism, you can name it void, Shunyam. But these are just words and some explanations. And that is not your knowledge. And since intellect is a product of the source, it cannot know. That is why intellect is to be silenced. You have to go beyond the intellect to know who you are, who I am. That is the big difference between Western philosophy and Indian philosophy, because Indian philosophy goes beyond the intellect. Now you read a philosophy, it is an intellectual exercise. Since it is an intellectual exercise, you know only at the level of intellect. That is just some informations. And the philosophies can be contradictory. Now these contradictory philosophies can fight against each other verbally, or we can make it a debate, but that will simply result in intellectual gymnastics. Now this intellectual gymnastics will not let us to the knowledge, state of knowledge. Because state of knowledge is to be known by experience, what we called embodied knowledge. In the word of Vedanta, we call aporoksha anubhuti. So that has to come. Until and unless that has not come to me, then that is not my knowledge. I can say this is the knowledge of Rishi Kapila, or this is the knowledge of Rishi Patanjali, or this is the knowledge of Gautama, this is the knowledge of Vyasa, or this is the knowledge of Krishna, or this is the knowledge of Vyasa. Because that is just the intellectual knowledge. And that is not my knowledge. That is to be achieved. That knowledge has to be my knowledge. That is the big difference between the Western religions and Indian religions. They are, a knowledge is revealed to a prophet, and the adherents has to believe. If you don't believe, then you are categorized as a infidel, a kafir, anything. But here in this country, you can question. You will see Parvati questioning Shiva. You will see Arjuna questioning Sri Krishna. You will see Dattatreya questioning Shiva. You will see Janaka questioning Ashtavakra. So here is a system of debate. You can question. You are free to reject it until and unless you have your own experience, experiential knowledge by living a life that is prescribed to achieve that knowledge. So when the question comes, who am I? There are intellectual answers that is given in philosophy. One can read it, one can get it. Most of you have read it, and you can also give a speech. Who am I? But do you really know? That is what yoga gives. Because yoga is a philosophy which does not go into the philosophical nitty-gritties of explanations. Rather, it gives you a set of practice by which you can know yourself. But since it is a talk, it will just be intellectual, because in a talk, we are using speech and intellect. Now let us discuss. Who am I? This question comes. Now suppose I will ask any of the participants, who are you? What you will say? You will tell your name. On further inquiry, you will tell your father's name, mother's name, name of the village, name of the state, name of the language you speak, name of your profession. So many things. But is that your identity? Yes, that is also your identity, but that is not your real identity. That is an identity imposed upon you. And to understand this identity, to understand that identity, first we have to understand this identity. Means to understand the metaphysical identity, that the real you are, you have to understand the apparent identity that presently you are going through. Now suppose I say who you just tell a name. A name is not identity. It is a name given by your parents at the time of your birth. Now you say I am this. Then this identity changes. Suppose you are in this class. Now you are a student of the value-added program, value-based program of the Surendranath College. So now at present, this is your identity. Or you are listening to me. You can say, I am a listener. Now that is your identity. Now you got a call from your mother. Your identity changes. You become the child of your mother. You connect to your friend. Then you become a friend of your friend. You are happy. You are a happy person. You are unhappy. You are an unhappy person. You attach to your profession. Then you are a doctor, you are a lecturer, you are a student, whatever it may be. So it means the apparent identity is changing at each moment. Then who the really you are? Now to understand this, we have to understand the body-mind complex. Your identity is presently with the body-mind complex. Now which body? At the time of your birth, maybe your mother has given birth to a baby who is just 8 pounds. Now where is that body? Now you are maybe 50 kilo in weight. So where that body is gone? Your body is changing at each moment. It has a birth, it has growth, it has changes, it has mutations, it has disease, it has old age, and ultimately it has death. Is that a body is you? Then you are an ever-changing phenomenon. But you as a person remains constant. Then the question comes, who am I then? Then people say that I am mind, I am intellect, I am ego. But which mind? Your mind is also goes through a series of changes. You have some set of ideas, maybe 10 years before. Now you may have completely discarded those ideas. Now with new ideas, or you have modified those ideas, or we have advanced and developed those ideas. So it is going through changes. Now then, which mind you are? You are a constant. But to understand all this, you have to understand this apparent identity, that who you are at present. If you are listening now, and your identity is a listener, what it is? It is nothing but a state of your mind. It is an activity of your mind. In the word, in a yogic word, we call it vritti. That means your identity is your vritti, the present vritti. You become sad, you become a sad person. That sadness is an activity of your mind. Since that is an activity of your mind, that is a vritti. Now you become a sad person. You become happy. Once you become happy, that is also activity of your mind. That is a vritti of your mind. So you become a happy person. You connect to your mother, you are your mother's child. That is a state of your mind, an activity of your mind. Now I am speaking in English and you are listening in English. So your knowledge system that is going on, the activity in your mind is in a system of language that is called English. Does that mean that you do not know your mother tongue Bengali? Now not a single word of your mother tongue Bengali is coming to you. But once you start with your friends and speaking Bengali, then an entire set of English will go. That means your identity is always changing, and that is a superimposed one, and that is based on an activity of your mind, or we can say mind intellect complex. And you have an identity with that. That means finding I, me, and mine to your mind and intellect complex, that is called ego. So that is the prime work of the mind intellect complex. And all these in the yogi scriptures has been named as chitta. Normally people translate chitta as mind. I also, to describe, use the word mind because that is easier to communicate. But when I come into the idea of chitta, it is actually a combination of 4 different principles within us, we called antakarana chatushtaya, 4 internal instruments. That is mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious. So we have mental activities at 4 levels: at the level of mind, at the level of intellect, at the level of ego, and at the level of subconscious. We understand mind easily because that is the upper surface. That is the one where all our activities are going on. Now, on the basis of that activity, we identify ourselves. Then this identity is changing because the activities of mind are changing. At this moment, there is some activity of our mind, and at the next moment, there is some other activities, and at the next moment, there are some other activities. Depending upon the activities, our identity is changing, and we find ourselves with an identity. Means I am a sad person, I am a happy person, I am a English speaking person, I am a Bengali speaking person, I am a Bengali, I am a Bihari, I am a Tamil, I am a Gujarati, I am an Indian, I am a doctor, I am an engineer, I am a carpenter, I am a farmer, whatever it means. So all our apparent identities are nothing but an activity of our mind, and actually we call it activities of our chitta. Chitta vritti means mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious. So to understand the activities, we have to understand the activities at all these 4 stages. We understand, as I say, we understand the mind because it is the upper surface. Mind is a principle by which we take cognition of the things. Now I am speaking and you are listening and taking cognition of what I am speaking. It is on the basis of your cognition in mind. You listen through your ear. Ear is just a door. Then the sound goes to your brain and you understand in your mind. That means the real cogniting factor is not your ear, but the mind. Now that becomes a knowledge in your mind, which is an activity of your mind, and that is your vritti. Now you are a listener, that is your identity. The next moment that identity will change. So you understand that this mind is the first cognitive factor. Another explanation we can give to our mind is that where the thought process is going on, a bunch of thoughts is presented. That means the inner faculty where thoughts are going on is the mind. That is also a correct definition. Both are correct. Then what is very important on the perspective of spiritualism is a definition of mind, that is manastu sankalpa vikalpana devi. Mind is verily that which makes result, which makes sankalpa. I will do this. I will join this program. That is a sankalpa you make. Without that, this work is not possible. Then the same mind makes a vikalpa, an alternative to the sankalpa. No. What is use in joining all these programs? Let us go to the party. My friends are coming. So you make a vikalpa. So where all this sankalpa and vikalpa is going on is your mind, and that makes your personality what you are, depending upon these activities. So these are called monovritti, the activities of mind. But that mind is not the supreme. There is a more subtler factor in your internal institution, which is more subtler and more powerful than the mind. That is called buddhi, intellect. Intellect is subtler than mind and more powerful than mind, because that is the one, as the definition of buddhi has been given, is buddhi stu padartha adhyavasaya dharma. Buddhi decides the very nature of the object. Now you are listening. It is just a sound, some words. Who decides what is the nature of these words? What is the meaning of these words? That this is in English. This is about the philosophy. This is about the topic, who am I? This is about something related to yoga. Your intellect decides. And as the intellect decides, mind acts accordingly. Say, for example, now there is some changes in the temperature. Sensation through your skin goes to the mind. Mind recognizes it, but your intellect takes it. Oh, this is hot. Oh, this is cold. Accordingly, your mind creates craving for that sensation or aversion towards that sensation. So the one which is more powerful, because it decides, it takes the very nature, that is intellect. And that is your learning process. We called it sanskaraja buddhi. The intellect based on the learning. What you are today is based on your learning. You are learning from very birth. And gradually, no, this is red, this is white, this is black, this is yellow, this is hot, this is cold, this is good, this is bad, this is apple, this is mango, this is banana. All is your learning process. And all this learning process is fixing a tag, and then your mind creates likes and dislikes, and accordingly you behave. Then there is a third faculty that is called aham, I sense. Ego is a negative word. Since there is no proper word in English, people use the word ego. I sense, feeling of I, me, and mine. When intellect is there, simultaneously along with the intellect, there is a feeling of I, me, and mine to the intellect. Then from intellect, it transcends down to mind. Then from mind, it transcends down to your physical body. Then you say, oh, I am this, I am this, I am this. That is your present identity based on the activities of your intellect. The ego principle or the I sense principle, finding it attached as a sense of I, me, and mine. Now, there are activities at the level of I sense, there are activities at the level of intellect, there are activities at the level of mind. And all these activities are imprinted. That is your subconscious. That is also called a chitta, or for better understanding, we can call it abhacheta. And everything is stored. That is your storehouse. And you don't delete anything. Since you don't delete anything, you are keeping, you are keeping, you are keeping. It is just like a computer where you make a file, then another file, then another file, then another file, and never deleting any file, and then you are exploring. Everything is stored. And time to time, it comes up in the form of memory. Then, as the original sensation to that memory, if it was painful, now it becomes sad. If it was pleasurable, now you become happy. Maybe that event has happened to you before 25 years or before 30 years. So all these levels, monovritti, buddhi vritti, aham vritti, and avachetana vritti, all are called chitta vritti. The activities of the chitta. There is no such word in English to say what chitta is. Better to use the word chitta, or we can say greater mind. Now that vritti is your identity. Then how to come to the real identity? That becomes the main problem. Because I am always with the apparent identity or the imposed identity on me because of my mind, my intellect, my ego, and my subconsciousness. And how these are formed? These are formed for my 5 doors of sensation: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. So through these 5 sensations, I learn about the world, and then there are activities in mind, and those mind activities are stored. And according to those activities, I find myself as a rich man or a poor man or a happy man or an unhappy man or a very good learned person or a dull person, whatever you may say. Now my identities are nothing but activities of my chitta. In yogic words, we called it chitta vritti. Since there are chitta vrittis, we cannot reach into our real identity, who we are. I say you are consciousness, you are Chaitya Satta, you are Atman, you are Jivatma, all this becomes just words. We don't understand. really what we are, because we have to reach to that state. Now here is a peculiar thing. To know the world, we have the mind, intellect complex. Without mind and intellect complex, we cannot know anything. Entire learning process is based on this mind intellect complex. And to help this mind intellect complex to learn, we have 5 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And all these are external. So we learn only the external things. We know the world. We are not able to know ourselves. That is the problem. But to know, we don't have any other instrument other than the mind intellect complex. Then if I have to know myself, I have to know with that complex only, because there is nothing else in human nature by which it can know. So how it will be possible? Because the very nature of mind intellect complex is a vritti. Since there is a vritti, that is my identity, and it is the nature of the mind and intellect to create a vritti, and then changing from one vritti to another vritti, then another vritti, then another vritti, then another vritti. So since there is a vritti, means activity of mind, I have an identity, and that is an identity given to me by my mind. That is not my real identity. To understand vritti, I will give you another very simple example. In ordinary sense, what we say vritti? Like the vritti of a teacher is to teach. The vritti of a carpenter is to make furniture. The vritti of a doctor to treat patients. The vritti of a farmer to do farming. That means vritti is something by which a person sustains. So here, vritti means the vritti is a thing by which your mind sustains, your intellect sustains, because they cannot remain without these vrittis. That is the very existence of the vritti. Suppose for a moment there was no thought in your mind, then you say, oh, my mind is blank. My mind was not there. Is it actually so that your mind was not there? No, your mind was there. The activity was not there. Since activities was not there, then you say, I don't have a mind. So mind is known by its activities. Intellect is known by its activities. Ego is known by identification with I, me, and mine. Subconscious is known with memory, storing, and all these activities are going on each moment within you and giving you a identity. So not possible to get a real identity. That is the problem. Number one. Number two problem, I don't have anything else other than the mind intellect complex to know myself. Then if I have to know, I have to know there. That is why in the second sutra of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, in the Samadhi Pada, the first chapter, Patanjali says, Yoga, Chitta, vritti, nirodhah. What is yoga? Yoga is nirodha of chitta vritti. Yoga is nirodha of chitta vritti. So we have to know yoga, to understand yoga, we have to understand what is nirodha and what is chitta vritti. Rodha means something obstructed, something stopped. Nirodha means that obstruction should not be abrupt. That should be by going through a certain definite process. Say, for example, every day we go into deep sleep, susupti. Then why you are not realizing yourself that I am the Atman, I am the consciousness, I am the Jivatma, I am the self, I am Nitya, I am Suddha, I am Buddha. Why you are not understanding? In Susupti, vrittis are stopped. But you don't have a knowledge. That means you are not going through a definite process to stop your vrittis. That is happening automatically through tamoguna, the qualities of sloth, the qualities of inertia. So you don't have a knowledge. You have to do the same process. How? With full awareness in awake state, in jagrata. Then, if you are able to do that, what is happening in deep sleep, same thing you are able to do with full awareness, with full awakening state in jagrata, then that will be turiya, the state of consciousness. The difference is the other thing happens in tamas qualities, the qualities of sloth, the qualities of inertia, and this happens in sattva quality, the qualities of knowledge. That is the difference between deep sleep and samadhi. So you have nirodha is doing that not abruptly. Nirodha can happen abruptly. Nirodha is that you have to go through a definite process. To do what? To stop the chitta vrittis. The vrittis of chitta. I have already telling that vrittis are the activities. Activities of chitta means mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious. These four instruments. They are not separate watertight compartments. These are one principle called chitta. But based on the activities, we divide it into mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious. Now the activities at all the levels is to be stopped. Now, if the activity is stopped, then what happens then? You don't have identity. Because your identity is created by your vritti, and since vritti is not there, you don't have identity. Means you don't have a superimposed identity. You don't have a physical identity. You don't have a mental identity. You don't have an intellectual identity. But then you have your real identity. You have your metaphysical identity. That means to have that identity, who am I, you have to surpass, you have to overcome all these identities. For that, you have to stop all your vrittis. If you are able to stop all your vrittis, then whatever will remain, that is the reality. Now Buddhist people call it Shunyam. There is nothing. It is void. Vedantic people call it Purnam. It is absolute. It is total. We can make arguments. We can debate over the ages. Since 2500 years, the debate is going on between Buddhists and Vedantic people. But that intellectual debate will not solve any of your problems. You become an adherent to a philosophy and you can debate, but you don't know. If you have to know, you have to achieve that state. Then you know it is Shunyam or Purnam, what it is. It is consciousness or something else. To know that, you have to stop all your vrittis. That is why you have to practice yoga. This is the definition of yoga. You can stretch your leg, you can bend your body and say, I am doing yoga. No, you are just doing one limb of yoga. That is posture. Yoga is to stop in a definite method all the activities, all the vrittis of your mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious. Since you stop, then only you will have your real identity, because you stop identifying yourself with any object of your mind or object of your intellect or object of your ego or any physical object. Now, for that, it is required that you stop the vrittis. You come to a state of no vritti, a vritti-less state. Then only it will be called yoga. Yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodhah. Then what will happen? On the third sutra, the answer is given. Tada drashtu svarupe avasthana. Tada drashtu. When you see that, means when you see that state of vritti nirodha within you, when you know that state of vritti nirodha within you, means you are not identifying with any superimposed identity of yours. And that is the state, svarupe avasthana. You reside in your own svarupa. You reside in your own form. That is the real you. Then you got the answer, who am I? Because you remain in your svarupa, your own form, your real identity. Means you have seized all the apparent identities, you have seized all the physical identities, you have seized all the identities of your mind, intellect complex. Then whatever remains, that is your real identity, that is your svarupa. You can call it Purnam, you can call it Shunyam, you can call it consciousness, you can call it eternal, you can call it pure, you can call it supreme knowledge, whatever the word you call. Previously, these are just words for you. A word, something to understand in your intellect. Now, this is not a word. This is an experience, an embodied knowledge, an anubhuti. Then you know who am I. So this is why yoga is just in the first, second and third sutra, Patanjali has explained who am I. What is your svarupa? Your svarupa is one. He is not going into any intellectual definitions. He is not giving you any intellectual knowledge. He is saying, you do this and you know. You stop all your vrittis of chitta, mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious. Then you come to a state, and in that state, you know your own svarupa, who you are. Then that will be your knowledge, and then you will know. Otherwise, you read something, you listen to a lecture, you just have intellectual knowledge, and that is not your knowledge. You are not knowing who am I. You can give an intellectual definition, but yoga does not give you an intellectual definition. It just says, stop all the vrittis of your chitta. That is yoga, and that you have to do with a definite process, following a definite method that is explained in the second chapter, that is sadhana pada. Then by that you stop all your vrittis. Since these vrittis are your identities, and these identities are stopped, then whatever remains, that state of vritti-lessness, that state of no activity of your mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious complex, whatever remains, that is the real you. That is, we can, to give an intellectual explanation, we can call it pure consciousness. Because in English, when you say consciousness, if someone is a student of psychology, then their mind is intellect complex, that is consciousness. But in Vedic philosophies, mind, intellect are not chetana, not consciousness. They are jada, they are innate things. The real consciousness is the state when you achieve that. And that achievement has to come by your own practice. Then you have the answer. Then you don't look for an intellectual answer to understand who you are. Intellectual answers can help you just understanding in a mental faculty, but that will not give you a knowledge. So then only you get that who the real you are. That means yoga is not giving you a definite intellectual answer that you are this, you are this, you are this, you are this. No. It is saying you will stay in your own svarupa, in your own form, That means you will know who you are when tadadrastu. You see that state, you experience that state of vritti nirodha, of your chitta. Otherwise, why? Why you have to do that? Then he said, vritti sarupya vitarata. At other times, when you are not in a state of yoga, not in samadhi, then your vritti becomes your own form. Like you are now listening, you are a listener. So your identity is a listener, is a vritti. You become sad, your identity of a sad person is a vritti. You are happy, your identity of a happy person. You are angry, your identity of a angry person. You are hungry, your identity as a hungry person is all your vritti. These are superimposed identities. So you have to stop all your superimposed identities, and that is possible only when you stop all the vrittis by following a definite process of practice. Then you come to know who you are. That is how yoga has been explained, and just in two sutras. First, on the second and third sutra, the two sutras, Rishi Patanjali has explained that who you are, without giving you a definition, without telling you who you are. He said, this is this, your identity is due to vrittis, that is a superimposed identity. You stop that identity, and then whatever remains is the real you. A Buddhist can call it Shunyam, a Vedanti can call it Purna. A yogi can call it chitti shakti, power of consciousness. Kaivalya svarupa, these are all words that is to be experienced, that is to be known, that is embodied knowledge, that is aparuksha anubhuti. You have to have that knowledge, because you can't know that by any other means. You can't know your own identity by any other means. Now that there are many misconceptions about yoga, people say over the ages it has propped up, because we are not going to the original sources. You are reading some new age books, and these new age books are written not for the purpose of knowledge. These new age books are written either for some professor to get a promotion, or one has to write some book, or one has to become some author, and they divide of the original teachings of the shastras, because a knowledge must come from a rishi. Rishi means one spiritual practitioner who is reached to the state of knowledge where he or she has seen that particular knowledge in the rishihood state. Then that has been written in the form of Upanishads, in the form of philosophies, that we call the Shastra. So since we leave the Shastras and write something else, like nowadays, people say many funny things about the understanding of yoga, because they don't have a proper understanding of yoga. They say yoga has to join body with mind, mind with intellect, this with that, because they don't have an understanding. Proper understanding is not there, because it is not based on Shastra. There are certain, one thing is to be clarified here. One common mistake people nowadays are doing is that people say yoga is to join. Why these things comes? Because yoga comes from the word use. The use has two different meanings. One meaning is yujir yoga, to join is yoga. But this definition is a mathematical definition. Because in mathematics we have yoga, we have viyoga, we have gunana, we have harana. Means addition is called yoga. So for the purpose of addition, this definition has been given. This is not a philosophical definition. Now, people with that definition, they go on saying you have to join. With whom? You have to join with your God. Then what is God? Where from that God comes? What that God does? I don't know. Then I create an imaginary thing called a God. He must have like this, like that, like that. And all is based on imagination. All is based on superimposition. You don't have to join anything with anything. Because as a consciousness, if you go into just simply the intellectual definition, you are one. Consciousness is oneness. There is no compartmentalization. That is Vedanta philosophy. Suppose you come to Sankhya. Sankhya does not say clearly. There can be many Purushas. So consciousness can be separate. Even if we accept that, then also there is no union. Because if there is separation, union is not possible. If there is union, then what union you will do? You are already joined. Like the space of this room is not separate from the total space. It is already joined. But you identify the space of this room is due to the boundaries of the walls, to the roof, to the floor. Then you say, I am like, this is the space of this room. But this space was existing before the construction of this room. This space is existing now with this room, and this space will be there with the demolition of this room. And this space is always one with the total space. So what joining one will do? Similarly, the consciousness that we are, due to identity with intellect, the ego complex, the ego has been formed, and I say, I am this, I am this, I am this. That is ignorance. So, in actuality, there is no joy. But there is also a proper definition of yoga, that is Juj Samadho. Samadhi is yoga. Why Samadhi is yoga? Because Samadhi is a state when all the activities of your mind, intellect, ego, and subconscious is stopped. That is vritti nirodhah state. So yoga and Samadhi are synonymous. That means it is a state of, when we say in philosophy, the yoga means we are speaking about Samadhi. When we speak about Samadhi, we are speaking about yoga, means state of no vritti, of chitta. And once that is achieved, then you know who you are. So this is the how you can have your own knowledge of about knowing who am I. Otherwise, it will be intellectual knowledge. Intellectual knowledge is given in many scriptures because that is how the understanding of rishis. When you understand something in a vrittiless state, in a rishihood state, in a state of samadhi, but when you go on speaking to that, you have to speak with the intellect and speech. And then it will be different from person to person. So someone will speak it as Shunyam and someone will speak it as Purnam. Differences are bound to crop up. And then you become adherents of philosophy and you can make debates, you can fight also. That is the problem of the human ignorance, not human knowledge. So if you have to have, then you have to go through a definite system that has been prescribed to reach to the state of no vritti or vrittiless state, so that you can answer your own question, that who am I? You don't have to look into the answer of someone else. You don't have to look into the answer some prophet has given or some son of the God has given. No. You have to have your own knowledge. Then that is your knowledge. And once you have your own knowledge, then you know. Oh, your rishis has known and you can also know. It is not that your rishis has known and you are not able to know. No, it is not like this. If Patanjali is able to know, if Vyasa is able to know, if Kapila is able to know, if Gautama is able to know, if Jaimini is able to know, if Krishna is able to know, I am also entitled to know. I am also entitled to have the knowledge. But for that, I have to go through a definite system of practice to train my mind to stop wandering, stop jumping from object to object, and stop creating identities. Once my mind stops creating all the identities, then I am there. I am with my real identity. Then the answer, who am I, is answered. The question, who am I, is answered. This is how, through the practice of yoga, here the practice means the actual practice is the three internal limbs of yoga: dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So by practice of dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, one will reach to that state, then he will know who am I. And to that, there are supporting 5 practices like yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and pratyahara. These are external limbs. Now I can just practice one limb, that is some posture, and say, oh, I am doing yoga. Then you may be doing yoga, not yoga. Because very understanding of yoga is lost, and very understanding of who am I is distorted. It is to be known by your own experience, from your own practice. Then you have that knowledge. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.